All right, everyone. Welcome to the second community call for gaming. Today's presenter is going to be Gilad. He's from ChainSafe. It's going to be about gasless transactions for a better gaming user experience, and really stoked to hear what he has to say. And yeah, so we're going to get started. We do have a POAP. You can scan this QR code, and it will bring you to it. So I'll let everybody give an opportunity to scan that. It all should work.
There's also like a 20-second like prove you're not a robot game that you have to play in order to claim the QR. So.
Okay, so I'm just going to go over some updates that the ChainSafe team has done since the last call that we had. And we've supported a bunch of new features. We're currently at version 1.2.4 right now. And in the next slide, I'm just going to have kind of like a little roadmap of what we've been able to add. And then this is not about me. We're going to kind of start up like a different format where like I'll kind of like go through a lot more of it. But today, I'm just going to kind of give you guys a step-by-step of what we were able to do, of what we've pushed since the last one, which has been quite a bit. And then I'll pass it over to Gilad to do a presentation on gasless transactions. And yeah, so starting at our major release at 1.0, we removed the modal. One of the major reasons why we did this was just because of the actual bloat that it was putting inside of the SDK. And so in order to trim that down, we basically removed it and open sourced our game WebGL platform to the community to support their own implementations of the browsers that they wanted to support, and also being able to configure a lot of the game WebGL or the web template that we use inside of the gaming SDK. 1.2.0, we added desktop build and Web3 wallet. And this was another huge milestone for the team, where we start for the first time we were able to have people start making builds on the desktop and mobile and sharing that same code base. So that was another huge milestone. Then we went into 1.2.1. We just added some bug fixes and some kind of like naming conventions and allowing the user to remember the sign-in process. One of the issues that we had with that was that some users were going in and out of the game, and then they kind of had to like re-sign. So we just added like a simple hook to remember if the user was signed in, and it was just like a little check for that. Then we went into our release of 1.2.2, and that is where we started. We added in-game signing. So now you could use private keys in game. And this was really a feature that wasn't meant to store private keys in game. It was mostly made to allow game developers to have a quick iteration process instead of having to build out the real GL game, having to test that out. So it was more of a feature that was meant for quick iterations for developers, and not something that you stick in there, and that's something that we're not endorsing at all. I'm rolling in 0.3 and 0.4 together because they're very similar. One thing that we added in our last release was that if a network isn't found, that it auto populates MetaMask for you. And then we added pagination for all 721 and our 1155 implementation, which allows a connected user to get all their NFTs with a simple call. And so that is an update for the releases that we have done since the last call. We're doing a lot of things rapidly. And if you have, like great ideas for things that you want to see inside of the SDK, please visit our GitHub, post an issue, mark it as a feature, and we can like triage that and apply it to our roadmap. So we're looking for community support with any of the updates that we're doing. And that's a quick one for us. And if you have any questions about what we've added, some of the things that you'd like to see before I pass it off to Gilad, I'll open that up to the floor now.
Thank you, Kwame, so much. Super excited of being here, and yeah, just talking about gaming and Gasless in general. We have a lot of exciting folks here. What I want to do is basically show a presentation about gaming and gasless transactions in general. Show small demo of what we're doing here at ChainSafe, what we're thinking about doing, and just open the floor for Q&A. We have some interesting technical folks here like Willem and just other folks who have been doing it for the last period of time here. So let me jump in and share my screen. Can I just get permissions?
Yes, sorry. Making you co-host.
Awesome. So let's jump in. So yes, just kind of like talking maybe about Web3 games. Playing Web3 games is hard. You need to connect your wallet. You need to buy game tokens and then also pay gas fees every time. I want to start actually here. Like, has this ever happened to you? Did you ever let's go into it, but I'm referencing here, by the way, Joy's famous milk carton advertised. Like, quick trivia, like, do you know what's Joy's name here? Does anyone remember? Maybe let's use the chat.
Is this like Joey from Friends?
Yes, this is Joy from Friends. Oh, I'm probably older than most folks here. Then, if you can't remember this one, yeah, he's playing in some show and he's trying to he's advertising a milk carton, and eventually he just can't open it, kind of like as a part of the show. It's actually Kevin. Like the Kent and Adam names are the fake ones. Never mind. We'll just move on. But basically, has this ever happened to you when you played in with Web3 games? I mean, that happens to me a lot of the times. Seeing the wrong network, or just getting some weird messages about something wrong. Please try again later. Or horrible messages that's coming in from MetaMask, but the game pretty much takes it and shows you what's happening there. Also, this just flat on the screen, or just waiting for stuck transactions. Playing Web3 games is super hard, and yeah, I'm just curious who like what have you maybe seen when playing Web3 games? Did anyone see similar things? Like, I can tell you that one of the worst experiences that I had was that I had 2 accounts on MetaMask, and I bought game tokens for one of them, but I connected the game with the other one, and then basically what happened was that I couldn't switch the wallet accounts. I'm not sure if it was on MetaMask or the game itself, but then I need to transfer the game tokens from one wallet to another. And I didn't have enough gas on one of them. Anyway, it was painful. So I'm sure like folks have seen really interesting stuff here. Just curious to see if someone wants to talk about a frustrating experience that they had.
I was playing Dark Forest once, and it doesn't cost much to play, but like eventually I just ran out of dye because they gave you some dye to play, and then I couldn't play anymore.
Yes.
I wonder like how much of this is, I mean, it seems like we're kind of like wrapping a lot of bad UX problems into this kind of like general idea of gas. But really, I mean, gas is just the price that you pay to make a blockchain transaction. And so if are we now talking about like eliminating the need for the blockchain transaction piece to be a part of the user experience? Or yeah, I guess that would kind of be like the gist of my question.
Yeah, I guess this was just a part of, playing generally on Web3 is hard. So just talking about the experience so far. Yeah, and I mean, what we'll want to do is just also talk about the experience specifically to gas fees, if this makes sense. But yeah, this was kind of like more of a general thing. Anyway, but yeah, maybe let's talk about the gas fees then. So yeah, what about gas? If we're just trying to look for on this vertical. Right now today, users pay gas fees every time. And I mean, someone put it really well. Think about watching a Netflix show and paying gas fees every single time. You probably won't do it, or it's probably going to be so painful that you'll just think about if you do want to watch that that horrible, like that stupid show that comes next. So what has your experience been with gas fees on blockchain games, I guess? Does anyone have an interesting gas fees example? Like Tim gave a really good one. Just wait another second. Maybe someone has like an interesting experience related to gas fees. It is a horrible problem.
Oh, I don't remember what game I was playing, but I remember like one day I was doing some transactions on some particular game, and it was super cheap. And then somebody launched an NFT like a few days later while I was playing the game, and I had to pay a lot to interact with the game. So that was really annoying.
Yeah, sounds brutal. Anyway, if we, right now at ChainSafe, what we're looking into is seeing how we can maybe solve this this pain point. Basically, a user does something on the game itself. It requires a transaction to go to the blockchain. So a pop-up will appear from the wallet of the user. They will still need to sign the transaction. This is something that we can still change in a sense, but it's going to be free of charge. And this is something really interesting. So the user is just going to have to sign for the transaction, but they're not going to have to pay for it. When we're saying actually gasless, that's something that I found out when talking to folks to folks about it are not very kind of like Web3 savvy. It's not that we're not going to pay the gas. Someone is going to pay the gas, but we're just transferring the gas costs to other folks. So for example, here in this example, it could be the game that's giving that gas fee for free, basically. Here, by the way, what we're seeing is an Axie Infinity example. So Axie Infinity today gives 20 transactions for free for every user. So I mean, it's already something pretty standardized, and we're looking to make it more democratized in a sense. So, but one of the questions that arise also is, what if the game developers don't want to pay for it, right? Or what if they want to subsidize maybe only a part of that cost with their users? So what we're thinking about, and would love your thoughts and opinions basically, is that before signing the transaction, as a user will go through a flow of paying it. And they can pay it in whatever form that they can, which is honestly pretty insane. They can use a credit card, they can use stable coins, they can use any other type of coin. And if the payments go through, only if it goes through, then they can, again, sign the transactions as before. So if you think about it, we can have a flow that says, like, if you don't have enough Binance tokens, that's fine, no worries. Just pay the gas fees with a credit card, and you should be all set. And we can give you some, gas fuel or something else, so you won't have to pay with the credit card every time, right? Like, we'll do it once. Maybe the game will subscribe you to it. Maybe we will charge you on a monthly basis, and we will give you a way to pay the gas fees in a different way. So this is basically what we are focusing on. We think this is a very interesting problem, and we would love to hear from the communities. There are other benefits. Paying with gas fees and trying to build the solutions for it lower the gas fees. The relayer that we're building at ChainSafe is optimizing the transactions and making those batched. And when they are batched, we can just lower the cost for it. And the cost could be about 40% of the actual gas fees. And if we're thinking about it, actually, users also avoid here a taxable event. So if you are paying with tokens, those tokens might have capital gain tax. So let's think of an Ethereum, gas fee. This gas fee is not. It's not that you're just paying that gas fee with Ethereum. It's also that you're paying like the 25% more on that capital gains tax. So eventually, we're cutting more than half of the cost it would pay. So both users and game developers can benefit from it. Yeah, and as we said, other games use GTS. Yes, GTS is already a standard. Axie Infinity, Decentraland, The Sandbox, a lot of different games use it and incorporate it in their app right now. And and users probably will get either more comfortable or just the bar will be higher, so they will expect, in a sense, as we assume, to pay those gasless transactions, those free transactions, in a sense. Yeah, and I mean, would just love to hear from you. I would love to make it a discussion. What do you think? And I see there are a couple of comments in the chat. So let's see, from John, the UX, I'll just read it out loud. So if it's a recording, so everyone can see it. So John is saying the UX for basically everything, Web3 is cringe compared to Web2. But I feel like this is because we are largely comparing it to our previous understanding of an experience while using Web2 services. Fixing UX for Web3 to make it more fluid like Web2 will happen with time, but it is perhaps more important to make the industry pioneer a whole new user experience and to accommodate the paradigm shift changes that accommodate committing actions on chain. Completely agree. And Danny saying, I think there is a lot of tension between decentralized systems and what we consider a good UX. I think I completely agree with you. Both UX and decentralization are in complete conflict. And it seems like we need to kind of like walk a very fine line here.
Yeah, I had a question a little bit above. Are the gasless transaction solutions that you talked about, are they centralized solutions?
So that's a good question. So, I mean, there are some competitors who are building it in a centralized manner. And when I'm saying centralized manner, so, a lot of it could be open, but then some of it is not open sourced. So still there's going to be a centralized component to it. We still haven't really started building our solution. We're just looking into prototypes. So,
but I would imagine that it essentially relates to like some trusted authority holding your money on your behalf, and then using it, and then, you know, doing that on behalf of like many users, and then using that to pay their transactions fees.
Yeah, I mean, you know, like maybe let's watch the demo, and then we can talk about it, because and you're touching on a really interesting point, but I want to say yes, kind of. I can tell you what we're doing here at ChainSafe. So right now, the solution that we're aiming for is to so a user will come into the app. They will connect with our GTS backend that's hosted by ChainSafe. ChainSafe will give them a smart contract wallet that they will deploy, that we will deploy for them, and we will pretty much manage that smart contract wallet in a sense together through a proxy with a Gnosis safe, and that's what's going to hold the transactions, the transaction fees. Okay, so yeah, maybe let's watch the demo a bit. I'm going to only show you about 3 minutes of it, so won't take too long. We'll start from here. This is Jan explaining about what ChainSafe has built so far. I'm just going to skip to the interesting part, let's say. So what we're seeing here is that we have a user with a wallet that they connected through MetaMask. We have the SC wallet, the smart contract wallet that ChainSafe has created for that user once they connected, and we're going to see the user's balance. So yeah.
So we will just provide his smart contract wallet address. So we just click connect, and we can see on the screen my current user URL. So we can verify it. So it's 1F4, and on MetaMask is 1F4. So it's still the same. And we can see just under what is my smart contract wallet associated. So the E7. So like I said, it's a noisy safe that we hold the funds. And the user balance is the user balance.
Sorry, can you pause, Gilad? I think it's very fast. We cannot understand anything.
Oh, sorry. Is it faster?
Yeah, it's in like 1.5 or something like that. So yeah.
If even the French guy is saying it's too fast, it must really be too fast. I thought it was just me, but okay. Thank you, Red One.
No.
Thank you, Red One. Yeah, I usually watch on 1.5. So yeah, that's on me.
Address. So we just click connect.
Okay, here we're seeing again the connecting to the GTS backend. We're going to see basically what the app is doing here, by the way, is a simple counter. So when we're actually clicking on the counter, it's going to go and interact with the blockchain.
On the GTS backend. So under the hood, we will send his user EOA, and the GTS backend will check if there is any smart contract wallet associated with this user. So if this is not the case, we will just create a new one. So it's a proxy to a Gnosis safe smart contract wallet that will be used to hold any user's funds or assets like token or NFTs. It will be used some sort of as some sort of middleware to allow GTS to work properly. And the second workflow we're going to see is just that the player already exists in the database. So we will just provide his smart contract wallet address. So we just click connect. And we can see on the screen my current user EOA. So we can verify it. So it's 1F4. And on MetaMask is 1F4. So still the same. And we can see just under what is my smart contract wallet associated. So the E7. So like I said, is a noisy safe that we hold the funds. And the user balance is the user balance of my user EOA, just to show during the demo that there is no fund added at any time. And both user balance and counter value are refreshed every 5 seconds. So now I'm the owner of the user EOA, and also GTS backend provide me a smart contract wallet that I'm also the owner at any time. So it's one-on-one owner to spend funds on this wallet. So every time we want to interact on the blockchain, we will need to ask the user to sign the transaction. So if I want my smart contract wallet to interact with the counter one, I will need to ask the user to sign the transaction. So if I click +1 button, we are not, MetaMask not asking us to send the transaction, but it asks us to sign a request. So asking to sign the NosiSafe transaction, including the counter increment call. So I would.
Yeah, as we can see right here, by the way, we are just, once we click on the counter, we're only signing the transaction, so we're not sending it. So there's no gas fees related to it. So that's the nice thing about it. Like the user that has a user balance of 0 tokens, $0, does not have to pay anything. And it just goes to the relayer.
And we will be able to see on the console the transaction hash provided by GTS, and we are just waiting for the transaction to be mined. So it's done. We can see the receipt in the console, sorry, or in the game, and we can see that the status is success. So if I copy the transaction hash on Etherscan, we can see that the transaction succeeded. The form address is 0x99E, which is the GTS relayer EOA that pay for the transaction fees. And we try to interact with the E7, which is my user smart contract wallet on chain. And so in this transaction, GTS backend pay for the fees, we can see here, and not my user EOA. So if we show it more details on what happened during the transaction using this service, we can see that the sender is still 99E, which is the relayer EOA. That call the proxy. So in this case, proxy is my NosiSafe proxy, which delegates call to the NosiSafe logic code to execute a transaction. So in this transaction, we want to call counter smart contract wallet, and we want to increment. So in data, it's just the API encode method function name, which is counter increment. So we can see just that we try to call from the proxy of the user. We want to call the increment.
Cool. Maybe let's pause here. Basically, we're as we can see, we have again a user. They're connecting to the GTS backend with their wallet. We're assigning them on the GTS backend a smart contract wallet, and once the user is interacting with the blockchain, their wallet is signing a transaction for free, and the smart contract, the relayer, and the smart contract wallet work together to send the transaction to the blockchain itself. And the nice thing about it is that it opens up a world of opportunities. We can talk about having games on Apple Store or Google Pay, because right now we're not actually doing things on the from the game itself on the blockchain. It's kind of like a gray area in a sense. We can again do subscription for users. We can let users pay or subsidize some of their gas costs, and we're eliminating one big problem here. So yeah, I'm going to pause here, I guess. Does anyone have anything? I'm seeing that we actually talked in the chat, so maybe I'm just going to, for the folks who are seeing the recording, I'm just going to say what we talked about. So Luke Moon is saying that for Cindy, the better result is pre-calculated at the beginning. I had to move this solution as making it turn-based would mean the player would have to verify every move. It also stops people from rage quitting if they are losing. I doubt they would sign the transaction if they are sore loser. I'm not sure I fully understood it, Lukman, if you want to talk about it more. But are you saying that even signing a lot of transactions is going to be painful? Is he here?
Yeah, he's still here. He might be.
He was responding to a question from Cindy, asking about a move. Yeah.
Yeah, he just find it frustrating every time in a turn-based battle. Yes, I hear you. Phil is saying that perhaps gasless transactions is not the right word. Oh yeah, preach. It's more about shifting the user experience to not have pop-ups at every interaction like it's pop-up ad in the old internet. Microtransactions in the games is already a used model of prepaying for a bunch of tokens and use them in the game when you need to. The problem is signing for every single thing you do. Yeah, I completely agree with you that gasless is a bad word. I can tell you that we talked to a couple of folks and they were under the impression that gasless means that ChainSafe is going to pay the gas fees, which I understand where they're coming from. So we definitely need to better marketing here at play. Yeah, I'm just going to solve the. Yeah, does anyone else want to pitch in or?
Yeah, I was just going to say, Gilad, I don't know how I didn't realize this before, but what you just said around GTS, since the user only has to sign with, like sign a generic sort of transaction, that I guess they might still need some sort of wallet to do that safely, but I don't know if there would be ephemeral keys that could be possible or some sort of lighter weight way to do it. But it just struck me that pre-authorizing a certain amount of funds to be spent during a game session is something that we've been interested in, and like lightening the load on having to do a full like MetaMask transaction with gas each and every time during gameplay. I didn't realize that that could be one way to use this system that you're talking about. So I'm kind of curious about what that could look like how to make the signing lightweight enough that you could like sign transactions for microtransactions in game repeatedly and then like broadcast them eventually all as like a bundle or something like that.
Can I respond to that?
Yeah, dude, please.
Yeah, I guess I kind of posted this comment in the chat already, but I think that we kind of have two things that we're talking about that we're calling them the same thing. like I think gasless is really just like the fact that you don't have to go to an exchange and buy ether to transact. And this other thing, like this, like trying to avoid signing, is like a totally different problem. But like both of them still address the onboarding UX thing. Like I think we should maybe like think of better names so that we can keep these things separate.
Yeah, I think I had been thinking about gasless transactions as a service as the former, which is the gas and like purchasing problem, and the onboarding bit as a completely separate one. But I'm realizing that a common set of tools that are needed for both approaches could be used in either case.
Yeah, I think the issue with signing seems to come up like more often than the issue with like having to buy ETH. I guess because like one of them you do once and the other one's going to annoy you like constantly forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
Also, a quick question: like, what if like a user rejects signing something? Like, then does like the game state roll back, or I'm not quite sure I understand that.
yeah, the transaction is not going to go through, and then you'll probably see a horrible message on your game, like no, the transaction will fail, but yeah, then a weird text message is going to come up. But yeah. Cool. I can team, should I give it back to you?
Yeah, sure. I can take it back over. Kwame is had to leave a little bit earlier for this call, but there were some like really interesting comments. I'm not sure if we want, did we like discuss all of the comments already in the chat? Like Phil's comments, like the non-custodial wrapper.
Yeah, we've thought about that, Phil. It's really interesting.
I'll read it for the recording. It's almost like we need some sort of non-custodial wrapper that's like a self-controlled Steam account where we can prepay credits for a bunch of games that use the same standard. At the same time, have it be trusted enough to sign things for you where it doesn't include a pop-up each time. The only centralized part would be having to figure out a way to get native crypto to someone to pay for the gas, question mark. And then Dan here has a question. Is the ETH deposited into a smart contract account that only the user account has access to?
I think Willem answered that one in chat for me.
Cool.
But thank
you. Cool. I guess like that's it for the presentation. Lukeman, like I'm really curious about your game. Like, would you be like willing to like, you know, like show some demos of it or something, or talk a little bit more about your game in particular? Because you said it's like a turn-based game.
Sure. So it's a multiplayer pet game where it's just a social pet game. Basically, I made the base of it using the Polygon network, and I got it working just fine, although I'm trying to move it onto the Loopring network now. So before I had it as a turn-based battle system, but then came across the issue of signing every transaction, like verifying every transaction. And then that came with the issue of what if a user's losing a battle, they're just not going to sign it and they'll leave. So I had to come up with an alternative method of pre-calculating the battle result when like have that as a function on the blockchain, run that, and then whether the person leaves the battle, whether they don't sign it, or that won't have to sign it, but whether they leave it or not, it will still be calculated. The end result is still calculated. I'll post some pictures in the ChainSafe Discord group shortly of the game.
That'd be sick. Yeah, we have the gaming dash showcase channel for that sort of stuff. But yeah, I'm curious. Like, I think it was Eric I was just talking to said this sort of situation kind of reminds us of challenges with layer 2, kind of like state and payment channel stuff, where you know people like pre-commit a certain amount, and then it's up to the two individuals to provide proofs of winning or losing or whatever, to have it arbitrated, and like, you know, basically bringing proof of something having happened within the game. And that I think that question of how we produce, you know, valid proofs within a game, and like how those are presented to the blockchain as evidence of a certain sort of response needing to happen. I think like we're really interested in creating kind of like a toolkit for those sorts of things. It's just connecting the game logic to like who actually deserves to win, and have that be presented to the blockchain at a later time even. It's an interesting problem. It's one that we've just started thinking about, and it goes deep.
A lot of the gaming stuff goes deep, I think, just because it's the UX is so different. John, you commented earlier about how it's really like a paradigm shift in terms of UX, and so yeah, it's definitely an interesting. And then
problem. There's like, I feel like this other like interesting component to it, which is like people, especially the people in our space, freaking love games. So like they have this like outsized impact on the ecosystem. It's like this interesting kind of like little place to like see what is going to happen, you know, because it's like kind of pushing the boundaries of what's possible with the technology, you know, going all the way back to like 2017 and CryptoKitties and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's a very exciting space for sure.
Yeah. I've said it often, but like gaming historically has always pushed kind of hardware to its absolute limits, you know? So I'm excited that we get to witness that in the crypto space. And yeah, I mean, I think we've all been waiting for more substantial and complicated interactions with people than just one person paying another, or just slotting it into a DeFi thing and waiting a couple months to see what happens, you know? This is kind of like more real-time hardcore stuff. So I'm excited that basically our SDK handles a lot of the common stuff, but there's so much that our users have to fill in and create custom, and we're learning from each one of those people with the kind of cool stuff that they have to fill in. And that's part of why we made the custom contract calls and the custom chain call support, is just to see what people do, is pretty much to like let them grow out of what we've predefined and show us the best way. So any of that stuff that folks find that they think is generalizable, really encourage them to share it as a feature request in GitHub, or just like make a PR and tell us why you think it's a good, you know, piece to the SDK. If you can create the prefabs just like we did, we'd love to help you think through that.
I'd like to provide like a small counter argument, not against my previous point, but take it as you will. I just think like to some extent, it's kind of nice that the transactions and everything is so bulky with Web3, which like before everyone wants to point their arrows at me. I mean, it's interesting because you're spending, I mean, potentially quite a lot of money here. And like, I don't know about you guys, but you can fat finger things and make mistakes pretty easily. And when you do, it's a huge problem. Like, especially if you spent, even sent $100 and you meant to send 100 and you ended up sending 1,000, and there's no recourse really. Somehow I guess you could communicate with the person and maybe get them to send it back. But like Venmo has the same problem. I think unfortunately, like sometimes PayPal is able to intervene, but most times doesn't seem like they are. And obviously with our world, like there is no way to intervene. And that's kind of the reason why it's so great. But it's like, then if you're just pushing all these buttons on UIs and everything is happening so quickly, you're like, uh-oh, I actually just spent $10,000. Like maybe things should be kind of slow. Maybe they should be a little bit more deliberate we should be more deliberate with our actions. And it's like, everyone is not going to agree with this probably, because games and things like that should be very fluid. But I guess the question I have is like, at what point in games are you spending thousands of dollars or doing actions that are like irreversible? That in my mind, that doesn't really exist yet in games that I've played, at least. Maybe like World of Warcraft, if you sell an item or something for like an absurd amount and you're like, oh, I didn't mean to do that, I guess. But I can't really think of a lot of scenarios where you spend potentially up to like $50,000 in a game at one point. Unless it's like poker.
So we know that John doesn't have a gambling addiction. Right, exactly. Like, go to Gamblers Anonymous and they'll be like, you've never spent $50,000 on a game? Well, you've never played. But I hear what you're saying. Like, yeah, like, I don't know. I think it goes back to this question of what do we want to decentralize? Because you pay a high cost for decentralization. Like, decentralized systems are inherently not as scalable as centralized systems. Like, that's why we gravitate towards centralized systems, because they're convenient and scalable, and we don't have to think about it, and you don't have to click a button every time you want to do something, because you're delegating all this trust. And so I do stand by like my previous statement that it's wonderful that there's like this explosion of Web3 games, because it does push the space and it provides all these like amazing areas to like play in important ways. But at the end of the day, for your average like Candy Crush gaming experience, is Web3 the way to go? And like, do I personally really believe that like games are the killer app for blockchain? I don't necessarily know. Like, I think blockchain may be more inclined to like, governance type mechanisms, which is kind of like these big important decisions. You don't make a governance decision lightly, but you still want the user experience to be good. And it all is still part of one another. But yeah, I think it's a really good point, John. I agree with you completely.
It's a fair question, but like, stuff like NFTs in games, like I would still love to be able to be actually able to own like my items and then maybe potentially even transfer it across like different games or something, right? So then in that case, like, don't you need blockchain and Web3 for games?
No, not really. Not really. I mean, like, yeah. I mean, I don't personally think so. And I think there's probably like more scalable ways that it could be implemented other than blockchain.
We'll see. I mean, right now, to your earlier point, we've heard from folks who run critical infrastructure that gaming is seemingly the #1 source of transactions that are happening right now in blockchain. So a lot of usage, and people are exploring this, getting familiar with these things, probably yelling at folks to make things better. So I think folks, it's a situation where there is a lot of pushback in the community against monetization of games, but I think that's less so from the point of view of virtual goods not needing to be valuable, but more that games have centered the play experience around that monetization, and it's sacrificed the fun. You know, it's not the same blow on the cartridge, pop it in, and you instantly get to have fun with your friends kind of thing. It becomes something that gets in the way of the fun. And so I think as we explore, like, blockchain's not all about cryptocurrency too. You know, some of this stuff, it may just be syncing worlds across, you know, different sort of things, and it's just you're paying the root like gas for it. You know, I think we're really excited to see where these things matter and where they make for better games rather than worse games. And right now, I think people are exploring, they're experimenting, but they're also playing with the monetization aspect, which can, in some cases, leave a bad taste in folks' mouths. So our hope is that we at least solve some of the UX stuff and then leave people with a few best practices of like kind of where we hope that gaming will go, and just hope that they kind of take that up. And, you know, I think, yeah, we see a lot of folks buying aesthetics and stuff in the gaming space, and I think there is a lot of scope for it. It just needs to be done in an authentic way. And the other thing that's cool, also, just to go on a little bit more, is we're starting to see, you know, we've been tracking whether or not the metaverse is happening at all. You know, there are groups that call themselves metaverse things, but it's really just a 3D world that folks, you know, collaborative 3D world with monetization. And that's something that Second Life did. It's something that, you know, High Fidelity and other 3D social environments have done, VR chat. But seeing some of these NFT drops where they are just sort of blank canvases, where they sort of dictate attributes, but they aren't associated with a particular game. People buy the NFTs, and then games build their games around those NFTs. They sort of create meaning to the attributes in different ways. So a person with the NFT can play various games and have that same set of attributes reflected in different worlds in different ways, where the NFT is not really, yeah, exactly. That's the one I was thinking of, Tim. Each game is going to have its own design, its own world, its own vision. And that's probably why it's so hard to imagine one NFT created for a specific game transferring over to another. But I think folks are getting used to the idea of creating these baseline things and then having them be reflected in different ways. And our SDK, most of what people do is they take an NFT that exists and they grant someone access to an object or a world or an experience in game that's locked in the binary if they have that NFT or not. And so it's kind of set up for that, which is pretty cool. So I'm excited to see how people reward folks in game, but also like let that asset be represented and flow through games in other ways too.
Is that represented like by a cookie? I mean, I'm not sure how gaming works, but I would imagine it has to be represented somehow for the user. And then also follow-up question on that is like, what's the shelf life for that like token? Because if they were able to transfer it out or sell it on like OpenSea, would that reflect immediately in the game, or would it take until like the next reset or the next like wallet read?
I think it's a good question. I think, you know, we have an API that folks can hit as often as they need to. Developers can make it necessary before critical actions are made in game, that you do a check on that stuff. And, you know, assets can be locked up in escrow. You can, you know, that's what's kind of cool about smart contracts is you can impose restrictions where folks can't necessarily move things in certain times. They can lock them up, they can stake them, they can do all sorts of stuff. So that's where you get into the programmable money piece, and it's kind of nice. And I'm curious, you know, with gasless transactions, you can abstract away a lot of that complexity and a lot of the gas and understanding the transactions, and just allow folks to focus on, you know, what it is that they're trying to do.
Way to bring it back, Alex. I love that.
Yep.
Yeah, maybe just to add to it, like to end the discussion, like yeah, just repeating Alex, the the play to earn movement has become insanely, you know, popular in the last 2 years, and I think it's just going to sweep like the rest of the blockchain community. If we're seeing folks in developing countries stop working their 9-to-5 jobs and going to play Axie Infinity to get their salary from there, that's life-changing. And
I totally think there's a place for like high stakes games, like completely. I think it's a valid use case. But I think that like kind of springboarding off what Alex says, like remembering like what the desired outcome is, you know, and if the desired outcome is to have some shared gaming platform where you can transfer assets, like that could very easily be implemented on Steam, and Steam is probably like, you know, more even equipped right now to set that up. And so, you know, focus on what is the value that you're bringing so that you can provide that in a way that makes sense and provides a good user experience.
Yeah, I agree with that. Like, if we're talking about maybe the goal, I think one of the interesting goals in blockchain games, anything here is that we're giving folks accessibility to the value that they created inside the platform, and we're, you know, giving them those incentives. And it's hard to give those micro incentives, I guess. And one of those, and we're building the infrastructure right now, and it's painful, but slowly but surely we're going together. And I mean, I'm sure that in about 5 years or so, we're going to see you know, I'm going to see my wife plays a Candy Crush with a crypto version, and you know, at least she's going to get something out of it, aside from, you know, smirky looks from my end. Like she's going to get some incentives from it as well. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. I guess it's going to be like, the tough thing is getting those Web2 users right now. It's inviting a new platform, making them cross that chasm is insane, and it's up to us. It's not going to come from them. It's up to us to give them better kind of products to eventually lead the way.
Better experiences.
Gilad, how do folks get in touch with you to like learn more about what we're doing, or like give suggestions or try stuff out when it's ready?
Oh, that's such a good question. Thank you, Alex. I'm at Gilad with soft Gilad at ChainSafe.io, and we'll probably put a link on the YouTube video, or, you know, you can just direct message me on Twitter. Yeah, and would love any questions that you have. I'm also on ChainSafe's Discord, David123. I need to change that, but yeah. You can talk to me there.
Sweet. Cool. That was a great conversation. I'm just going to quickly share my screen again, so that everyone can claim your POAP for this community call. This is a new thing that we're doing. Oh, wow. We're at 23 of 30 codes. So limited POAP codes. But thank you, y'all, for joining the call. Lutman, thank you for joining in. Really appreciated your insight. Gilad, sorry. Thank you for your presentation. And then Dan and John and Phil and Alex, like, great input. Hope to have you guys back for the third community call for gaming. That was a really good combo. So cool.
Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Someone please make a game where these POAP tokens actually get used. I think that'd be sweet.
That would be good.
Thanks all. Thanks everyone.
Solutions research.
Yo.
All right.
All right.
Take it easy, y'all.
Thank you all.
Thanks for joining.
Bye.
Bye.